Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're at. My name is Warren Hojnacki. Welcome to this informative webinar on external supplier audits. Just a few housekeeping guidelines, as you can see those right there. We'll just take a moment so you can digest that information to make this webinar as valuable as possible for you. Again, thank you. The title of this webinar today is The Value of External Supplier Audits for the Pet Food Industry. But as you'll soon find out, the value of external supplier audits is applicable to any company within the entire value and supply chain. So I'm sure there'll be some nuggets of information to carry through, whether you're in the packaging industry or just ingredient industry and so forth. Bit of an introduction regarding our speakers today. Jennifer Lott will be the primary speaker. She's the Technical Director of Food for SGS North America. Jennifer has been with us for a number of years. She's passionate about helping companies grow and succeed. Jennifer specializes in food and product safety management systems. Her expertise in all things associated with certification, including training and project management. She has a commitment to excellence, a positive can-do attitude, and is always looking for opportunities to develop solutions to meet the needs of clients. Outside of work, Jennifer enjoys hiking, volunteering, creating new recipes from leftovers. Boy, I need to take some tidbits from you there, Jennifer, and spending time with her family. I will be the moderator and host. Again, my name is Warren Hojnacki. I'm the regional manager for SGS North America. I've been with SGS or in the food industry, specifically over 24 years as it relates to the certification and training industry. My focus is assisting food clients, whether it's producers, manufacturers, distributors, packagers, et cetera, succeed through food safety certifications like GFSI, all of the niche certifications like non-GMO, gluten-free, social compliance audits as well, and then getting into even the animal feed certifications. Also assist companies with supplier risk assessment programs and testing and training services. With the combination of Jennifer's experience, my experience, and SGS's experience of over 140 years in this industry, there's a lot of resources to help. In addition to my involvement at SGS, I'm a dedicated resource to our clients. I have been a past chair of the American Society for Quality, the Milwaukee section twice, and an active member in the IFT sections of both Chicago and southeastern Wisconsin. You may or may not know who we are, SGS, so just a quick tidbit of information. We founded in 1878. We are the world's largest and oldest food safety certification body, nearly 100,000 employees, over 2,600 offices throughout the world. And we have 7 primary focused areas, one of which, without a doubt, is dealing with the entire food supply chain. We focus in 4 primary areas. One dealing with certification, as I mentioned, all of the GFSI certifications, NIT-specific certifications, starting from just even GMP and HACCP all the way up to, again, GFSI, but also gluten-free, non-GMO, and the likes of those. We have a very robust training portfolio, been very proficient in providing live instructor-led training courses for well over a decade. And we can help companies, whether it's just a refresher to advanced type of programs, as well as customized training solutions. We also provide customized audits, speaking about that. So we can assist companies if they're having challenges due to, let's say, food safety recalls, or maybe even dealing with auditing their own supply chains, which we actively do both domestically and internationally. And then last but not least, we have technical consulting, tapping the vast resources such as like Jennifer right here, certainly can assist companies to be more productive and efficient. What makes us different than so many other companies that are out there, other than the fact that we are the world's largest and oldest, 140 years old? We tap into the industry expertise and the quality of service. That it's a global network. So for companies, especially that have supply chains globally, we're able to, as I say, tap in the global expertise for local presence. So we work in over 100 countries around the world. So we truly are a farm to fork solution for companies. Jumping into the agenda in particular, obviously the introduction, which we just did, Jennifer then will talk about the evolution of pet food products. And then we'll move on to the Codex Alimentarius, specifically HACCP GMP. Jennifer will touch on horizon scanning, a particular tool that can be quite helpful for companies. And then risk associated with the pet food industry, elements to manage a supply chain, and then the required resources in which to assist in that management of the supply chain, and we'll do some Q&A. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Warren. When I first began to research the content for today's webinar, I remembered that when I first started working as a food safety auditor with SGS, I visited a site in California that had an entire warehouse dedicated to pet food, more specifically cat food. And as I did the tour of that facility, I remember thinking to myself, these cats eat a whole lot better than I do with all these different varieties and flavors. Then, when I read that in 2022, the US exported $2.48 billion of dog and cat food and is projected to reach $275 billion by the end of this decade, I remember just how full that warehouse was when I audited it a few years ago. One of the biggest factors driving the growth of US produced pet food products is the superior quality and safety standards imposed by the US regulations. And with this projected growth that we're seeing, there are still challenges, such as inflation, labor shortages, and supply chain issues. I'd really hoped by 2024 we would be through these similar challenges brought on by the pandemic, but this is a topic for another webinar. Dogs and cats have a long history of living with humans, with dogs being domesticated about 16,000 years ago. Before the Industrial Revolution, working class dogs had basic and sometimes poor diets just like their owners, while wealthier dog owners provided more varied and luxurious pet meals, including roast duck, consomme, and cakes even. In the mid-1800s, urban working class dogs in cities like New York and London were fed horse meats and leftovers from their owners' tables. Some people even believed that meat, especially raw meat, corrupted pets and led to savage behavior, leading to a more controlled diet that was advocated to civilized dogs. In the 19th century, dog food ingredients included rye bread, brown bread, vegetables, fresh meats, and slaughterhouse leavings. Kennel masters took pride in their dog food recipes, often using fresh vegetables and secret ingredients like sherry or gunpowder. The Industrial Revolution brought significant changes to the diets of working class dogs. With the rise of the middle class and the ability to mass produce pet food, dogs began receiving more varied and luxurious meals. Today, there's a focus on well-balanced diets and portion control. Owners can choose from dry kibble to premium and natural foods for their pets. A few slides ago, I mentioned that one of the keys to the staggering growth of the US produced pet foods is superior quality and food safety standards. I just want to take a step back and give you a little bit of background. The Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, regulates pet food like that for, for other animal foods. The Federal Drug, Food, and Cosmetic Act, or FD&C Act, requires that all animal foods, like human foods, be safe to eat, produce under sanitary conditions, contain no harmful substances, and be truthfully labeled. In the US, pet foods is one of the most highly regulated food products and must meet federal and state regulations. The FDA regulates finished pet food products, and this includes treats and chews and their ingredients. Nearly all states also require that pet products sold to be registered and their labels must adhere to strict product names and ingredient requirements. An ingredient cannot be used in pet food until it's been recognized by the FDA or AAFCO, the Association of American Feed Officials. The passage of the Food Safety Modernization Act in 2011 created new requirements and mandatory product safety standards for virtually all U.S. human food and U.S. pet food makers. The focus for human and animal food under the law is preventing illness rather than reacting and correcting issues that have arisen. The law also gives the FDA the authority to conduct facility inspections to verify FSMA compliance and ensure imported foods meet U.S. food safety standards. Much like Codex Alimentarius, FSMA requires pet food makers to implement good manufacturing practices that include requirements for employees, facility design, equipment upkeep, and maintenance. Identify and evaluate hazards, biological, chemical, physical, or radiological, that may be associated with the foods they make, and put in place procedures or preventive controls that address those hazards. Develop and implement a food safety plan detailing the steps to ensure product safety, from sourcing ingredients to carrying out product recalls when necessary. And they must comply with the FSMA requirements regarding foreign suppliers and sanitary transportation for finished food, pet foods and treats, and ingredients. Most states regulate pet food products under their animal feed laws. To let regulators know what products are being sold in their respective states, registration of each pet food product is required before it can be sold. Additionally, manufacturers must submit a product label for each pet food or treat produced that they want to sell in the state for review and acceptance by state regulators. While the approach to pet food integrity, safety, authenticity, and quality has seen significant advancements since 2011 with the Food Safety Modernization Act, recalls still happen, often with the reoccurrence of the same pet food safety failures, which includes some examples: excess vitamin D3 that was found in dry pet food, mycotoxins that was also in dry pet foods, thiamine deficiencies, which was found in a wet pet food, and then foodborne pathogens like salmonella, which was in a raw pet food. Other risks associated with pet foods include traceability issues, food fraud, HACCP, VASIP, and TACCP assessments not being completed correctly, and lack of a firm crisis management program. Some of the risks mentioned before can be better managed with horizon scanning. Horizon scanning refers to collecting information about current trends in food production and predicted incidents that could increase the likelihood of a failure for a particular food. It systematically examines potential hazards, opportunities, and likely future developments at the margins of current thinking and planning. Horizon scanning is used to identify potential threats, risks, and emerging issues and opportunities. Horizon scanning should be seen as an infinite loop, moving from signals to triggers to insights. Signals come from monitoring, and monitoring can come from multiple sources, such as regulation changes, incidents that have occurred, scientific insights, social news, or laboratory insights from testing results. Signals are important because they can be a base of concern for your company. You may not know how to act upon a signal, but it raises your awareness. Again, horizon scanning should be seen as dynamic and as an infinite loop. Here's a case study that happened in Australia in 2021, an incident that led to the death of 28 dogs and 68 more with severe liver failure due to a naturally occurring hepatotoxin, indospacin. With further research, I found out the following. Hepatotoxin is a naturally occurring toxin found in plant species from the genus Indigofera. These plants are generally high in protein and palatable to livestock. The indocin residue accumulates in the tissue of the grazing animal, such as cattle, camels, and horses, and can persist for several months after exposure. Dogs are particularly sensitive to endospicin. The genus Indigofera is widely distributed across tropical and subtropical regions. So knowing this, while it may never become an issue for your company in the US, with horizon scanning, your company becomes aware of issues like this, allowing actions to be taken to review the supply chain and ensure that the same or similar issues cannot happen with your finished products. So it leads us to our next question. Why is supply chain management important? The reason it's important is because it can help achieve several business objectives. For instance, controlling manufacturing processes can improve product quality, reduce the risk of recalls and lawsuits, and help to build a strong consumer brand. At the same time, control over shipping procedures can improve customer service by avoiding costly shortages or periods of inventory oversupply. Overall, supply chain management provides multiple opportunities for companies to improve their profit margins, especially for businesses with large and international operations. Supply chain management, again, is the centralized management of the flow of goods and services to and from a company. It includes all the processes transforming raw materials and components into finished products. By managing this supply chain, companies can cut excess costs and deliver products to the consumer faster and more efficiently. Good supply chain management can help prevent expensive product recalls, lawsuits, and bad publicity. There are 5 critical phases of supply chain management that are planning, sourcing, production, distribution, and returns. Please keep in mind that a good supply chain management program controls and reduces costs and avoids supply shortages. I just mentioned the 5 critical phases of supply chain management. The process usually begins with planning to match supply with customer and manufacturing demands to get the best results. Companies must try to predict their future needs and act accordingly. This will consider the raw materials or components needed during each manufacturing stage, equipment capacity and limitations, and staffing needs to run the equipment. Many large businesses often rely on ERPs or intersource resource planning software to help coordinate this process. Sourcing. Effective supply chain management processes rely heavily on strong relationships with their suppliers. Sourcing entails working with vendors to supply materials needed throughout the manufacturing process. Different industries will have different sourcing requirements, but in general, sourcing involves ensuring that, one, the raw materials or components meet the manufacturing specifications for producing the goods, that the prices paid by the vendor are in line with market expectations, that the vendor can deliver emergency materials due to unforeseen events, and the vendor has a proven record of delivering goods on time and of the right quality. Supply chain management is especially critical when manufacturers are working with perishable goods. When sourcing goods, companies need to be mindful of lead times and how well equipped a supplier is to meet their needs. The heart of the supply chain management process is manufacturing. This is where the company uses its machinery and labor to transform the raw materials or components it has received from its suppliers into something new. The final product is the ultimate goal of the manufacturing process, though it's not often the final stage of the supply chain management. Sometimes manufacturing processes may be divided into subtasks, such as assembly, testing, inspection, and packaging. During the manufacturing process, companies must be mindful of waste or other factors that may cause deviations from their original plans. For example, if a company uses more raw materials than planned and sourced due to inadequate employee training, it must rectify the issue or revisit the earlier stages in their plan. Once products are made and sales are finalized, a company must get those products into the hands of their customers. A company with an effective supply chain management program will have robust logistic capacity and delivery channels to ensure timely, safe, and inexpensive delivery of its products. This includes having a backup or diversified distribution methods should one method of transportation temporarily be unusable. For example, how might one record snowfall in a distribution center area impact a company's delivery process? How might you get around that? Of course, it's by having backups. And lastly, the supply chain management process concludes with the support for the product and customer returns. It's bad enough when a customer needs to return a product, but even worse if it's due to an error on the part of your company. The return process is often referred to as reverse logistics. The company must ensure it has the capability to receive return products and correct assigned refunds for them. When a company is conducting a product recall or a customer is unsatisfied with the product, the transaction with the customer must be remedied. Returns can be a valuable form of feedback and a source of information that will help the company identify defective or poorly designed products and make necessary changes. However, the supply chain management process will fail without addressing the underlying cause of a customer return, and the future returns will likely persist. The supply chain management system does not look the same for all companies. Each business has its own goals, constraints, and strengths that will shape its supply chain program. Here are some examples of models a company can adopt to guide its supply chain management effort. Continuous flow model. It's one of the more traditional supply chain models. This model is often best for mature industries. The continuous flow model relies on a manufacturer producing the same good over and over and expecting customer demand with little variation. The agile model is best for companies with unpredictable demand or custom order products. This model prioritizes flexibility, as a company may have a specific need at any given moment and must be prepared to pivot accordingly. The fast model emphasizes the quick turnover of a product with a short life cycle. Using a fast chain model, a company strives to capitalize on a trend, quickly produce goods, and ensure the product is fully sold before the trend ends. A flexible model works best for companies affected by seasonality. Some companies may have higher demand requirements during peak seasons and low volume requirements in others. A flexible model of supply chain management ensures that production can easily be ramped up or wound down. An efficient model is usually used by companies competing in industries with very light profit margins. A company may strive to get an advantage by making its supply chain process the most efficient. This usually includes utilizing equipment and machinery in the most ideal ways, in addition to managing inventory and processing orders the most efficiently way they can. A custom model doesn't really suit, if you go with a custom model, it's because the one we described above doesn't really suit your needs. This often is a case for highly specialized industries with technical requirements, such as an automobile manufacturer. The bottom line is the supply chain starts with the ordering of raw materials or components from a supplier and ends with the delivery of a finished product or service to the end customer. In supply chain management, every link in that chain may offer an opportunity to add value or reduce inefficiency. A well-run supply chain management program can increase a company's revenues, decrease costs, and bolster the bottom line. I'll wrap up today's webinar on a different note and take some time to discuss trends in the pet food industry. The shift from traditional protein to plant-based, cultured, fermented, or insect-based proteins continue into 2024. Fueled by growing consumer acceptance of alternative protein sources. These include plant components and extracts, such as ancient grains, that support balanced nutrition and serve as key fiber sources in a diet. Additionally, fermented yeast is making its way into more and more pet nutrition products as an early entrant, and startups hone their processes and approach commercial scalability. Insect ingredients are still facing the ick factor from consumers, but are beginning to get traction as viable alternatives to traditional meat ingredients. Black soldier flies, mealworms, and crickets are cropping up as digestible, palatable, nutritious, and environmentally friendly protein sources for various pet nutrition products and formats. With an eye forward sustainability, pet food producers have continued to fine-tune their packaging and operations to lower environmental impacts. Packaging suppliers have been hard at work to develop films that incorporate recycled materials and are biodegradable to reduce reliance on virgin plastics. Many turn to third-party players to help them identify and realize sustainability opportunities through environmental and social business practices. Many manufacturers are innovating product packaging and designs to reduce the number of materials and incorporate, again, recycled, upcycled, or biodegradable components. Third-party validated ethical claims and sustainability credentials were also important to today's consumers. In line with the demand for sustainability, corporate values are becoming table stakes in the pet industry, with consumers paying closer attention to a brand's traceability, social impact, and ethical practices. Modern pet parents are also attuned to a company's values regarding ethics and traceability. Manufacturers are raising awareness of their efforts to use locally sourced ingredients, energy-efficient production processes, fair treatment of workers, and charitable giving in their communities. Technology is also becoming more commonplace in the pet industry as consumers seek convenience, efficacy, and above all else, treating their furry companions as members of their family. From tech-enhanced nutritional science and retail to the use of artificial intelligence, pet owners today have more insight into the specific needs of their pets than ever before, and savvy industry members are poised to capitalize on these emerging demands. As consumers continue to seek function, tech-aided advancements are positioning it to accelerate the industry's understanding of pet health and wellness, and how best to support it through foods, treats, and supplements. American consumers were the first early adopters of functional pet nutrition, but pet owners worldwide are beginning to catch on to this trend. Some of the leading priorities among pet owners include products to support overall wellness, calming, digestion, mobility, skin and coat, and healthy aging. With supply chain challenges, raw material shortage, inflation has also caused the pet food and treat prices to skyrocket in recent years, fueling much of the category's growth in 2022. However, according to packaged facts, roughly 1/3 of the pet owners who have switched pet foods in the last 12 months have moved to a lower price option. We got to keep in mind though, pet parents remain committed to their four-legged companions' health and wellness and continue to recognize nutrition as a crucial means to the end. Quality indicators and callouts on pet product packages and educational materials will continue to lead consumers towards better for you pet food and treat products. Claims like plant-based, natural ingredients, and hypoallergenic, as well as formulas that are free from artificial additives and preservatives, will continue to draw eyes to the shelf. Efficacy claims like scientifically tested and backed by clinical studies also turn heads in this market. Consumers may trade down to smaller packages, switch to store brands, or purchase foods with less premium ingredients to stretch their dollar, but their pet health is what's foremost important to them. Building on the global trends of 2023, we expect 2024 to have a greater focus on the transformative power of technology in the pet food industry.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that insightful webinar. Tremendous amount of information that even me, that I've been in the industry for a while, you forget about the risks that are unfortunately inherent in the entire supply chain. Just a couple of items before we get to the Q&A. very germane to this topic, the Pet Food Forum is not too far off. We will, as we always are, we will be there at the Pet Food Forum exhibiting. Jennifer will be there, as well as myself and one of our technical directors from our testing side, too. So if by chance you will be at that event, stop by the booth, say hi. It'd be great to see you. One other topic to point out, oftentimes from these kind of events, these type of webinars, it's almost like an onion or avocado or artichoke or something like that, where you start peeling off and you understand there's some needs that exist. And I'm proud to say that SGS is one of the most popular FSPCA training providers in the industry. So we offer specifically the human version. We also offer the animal one. But the human version, you can see we do that a couple of times a month due to its popularity. Certainly feel free to contact me if you have interest. I can extend some special discounts, but also if you have a group of roughly 5 or half a dozen folks from your company requiring the same knowledge and skills, let me know. We can arrange a special session just for you and your company. It can be either done, again, through live virtual instructor-led, like this format right now, or actually they're physically on site. Interesting enough is that has come back in vogue, where companies want to have specifically on-site physical training done, and we have the expertise in which to do that. Also subscribe for more information, additional webinars, recordings that we have, live events, such as like the Pet Food Forum that'll be in a couple of months' time. We have a tremendous amount of information, and certainly feel free to share that with your colleagues as well. Once again, you will receive this entire slide deck at the end, so don't worry if you don't have a chance or having a challenge in which to get that QR code. And now for some Q&A that we've gotten. I've been going through. We do have a number of comments that have come through, and so Jennifer, certainly share those with you to get your thoughts on it. What does an average supplier audit look like? So vis-a-vis our conversation today has been on, conducting external supplier audits. What have you seen from your expertise? And I'll chime in too. Have you seen, what do they look like, overall?
Yes. Typically, when we do supply chain audits or supplier audits, we're not going to the full level of a GFSI audit where we're spending 2-3 days on site looking at everything. But we do go in and we focus quite extensively on good manufacturing practices, risk assessment, internal audits, corrective and preventive action, and how they're managing their system so that you have the confidence that when issues arise, they're taking effective and quick action to mitigate what the risks are. And that as they've looked at the materials they're getting to manufacture the product you're purchasing, they've considered all the risk, whether it be chemical, physical, radiological, biological, and such, that will bring a problem to you possibly. So that's the key to it. And then if there are certain aspects that you want us to dive into, then we can customize the supplier audit to what your needs are as well.
I understand, yes. And a follow-up question to that, has the supplier audit specifically to pet food been strictly with the actual food manufacturers? I'm kind of summarizing here, the actual food ingredient manufacturers, or have they also included the packaging side or the distribution side? I've seen less of that just because, from my experience, just the volume, the number of pet food manufacturers that exist out there. That's been the primary, but there has been a few other ones. I don't know, Jennifer, what have you seen from your perspective?
I'm not quite sure I understood the question, Warren. Could you repeat it to me?
Sure. Yeah, it was relating to supplier audits just specific to the food manufacturers themselves, or are they all across the whole spectrum, like packaging or and so forth?
It's a very good question. And, I kind of let off by saying that I had done a storage and distribution audit at a client in California, and all they had in their warehouse was pet food. So it was a GFSI benchmarked storage and distribution audit for a pet food supply, distribution company. So we do see warehouses are being audited for distribution, storage and distribution for pet food, as well as packaging. But to your point, Warren, correct, I've not seen as many packaging suppliers as I have in the food industry. But it doesn't mean that the products aren't being manufactured, could be used in the pet food industry as well.
Very true. Yeah. Question is, what are the auditing procedures for packaging suppliers? That's kind of a loaded question.
Right. Well, when I think about packaging suppliers, they're really not that different than for a food manufacturer. We're going in and we're looking for senior management commitment. So do they have the commitment from the top? Do they have a policy that's being communicated? We look at their risk assessment. Have they done a hazard analysis and looked at the risk and how are they mitigating the risk? Now, I'll be the first one to admit to you that when I go in and I look at a packaging client, 9 times out of 10, I don't see preventive controls or critical control points or OPRPs because it's just not the nature of that type of product. But they still have to go through and do that risk assessment. And if it's printed packaging, they need to make sure that there's no chemical migration that could cause some harm. We also look at records, documentation, preventive maintenance, corrective and preventive action, process controls. It just goes on, training, personnel, GMP, and things along those lines. So truly, it's not a whole lot different. It's just that the finished good may not be a high-risk product as you would see with like a ground burger.
Understand. Makes sense entirely. Is it reasonable to assess a supplier by document review only, such as the HACCP full pan or COAs?
I think it's a very good. Yeah, I think it's a good start with the questionnaire to make sure that they have the documents that you feel are important to your process. Because I often say, and Warren will shake her head, says, "Yep, she says this," is that you're only as good as your suppliers. And if your suppliers are letting you down, you're going to run into issues as well. So you need to be comfortable with what your supplier is providing you. And depending on the amount and the criticality of what they're supplying, it may be in your best interest to do a little bit more than a paper look.
Yeah. And that's quite often when we're brought in. Right, Jennifer? I mean, the company will say, well, we've done for a while desktop review and audit, but we need somebody to go in independently and with the expertise of doing, let's say, a FSMA type of audit, not just a general food safety audit, but a FSMA bent on it and ask us to come in, which is usually the case to ensure to mitigate the risk.
Yeah, Warren, to your point is that when I talk about suppliers, we have suppliers of ingredients and supplier of product contact packages, but we also have corrugate suppliers. In my mind, a corrugate supplier probably is less critical to the product than a contact surface or an ingredient. However, the corrugate needs to has probably important legal information about quantity and claims that need to be checked. So you just have to determine what's critical to you and how you manage it.
Very true. Yeah. If a supplier is GFSI certified, is it then considered acceptable for pet foods, or is there another standard? I know the answer. I'll let you do.
The GFSI is applicable to pet foods. So it's a very good first start. But you can't forget that there are other regulations that you may need to be aware of. So remember when I was saying that within each state, they have to apply and have labels reviewed? You need to ensure that the product is safe to be used within the state that you're manufacturing and the state that you're shipping to.
Yeah, very true. Yes, exactly. What is the FDA regulation for pet foods? I think you touched on this a little bit early on, but if you could
Right.
maybe
Believe it
expand
or
on that.
not, for pet food, it's 21 CFR 117. It's the Food Safety Modernization Act.
Right, right, because it's applicable for human as well as pets, so across the board,
Correct.
basically. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Could you give me more details about your pet food training? Jennifer, I'll start off, but certainly you're a trainer as well by heart and that. But the training courses, because again, pet food is applicable to human food. So the training, like the FSPCA PCQI, there isn't one, if that's part of the question. There isn't one just specific for pet food. It is human food, which is the same, and then there's animal, but the animal version is specific to animal feed. So sometimes there is that confusion that clients do have. So anything that is applicable for the human side, such as a HACCP implementation course, or even any of the GFSI courses, which we are a licensed training center for SQF, that course is applicable whether it's for human food or and as well for a pet food. So anything you want to share in addition to that, Jennifer?
I think it's important that if you're just starting down this path and you're looking at how do I become compliant, is that you think about, how do we eat the element? We take, small steps. So the first thing I would think that you would want to do is make sure that you understand good manufacturing practices and what that's part of. Because when we talk about GMP and risk assessment, the foundation of the hazard analysis you're doing is sitting on top of those good manufacturing practices you put in place. And what I mean is that if you're saying that I don't have to worry about pests getting into my product because I have an effective pest control program, well, pest control program is part of good manufacturing practices. So as long as you have an effective pest control program, you can always say, I don't worry about pests. And they just build upon each other. So when you think about training, it's like understand GMP and then understand risk assessment. And a big part of the new requirements, it's not only hazard, you also have to understand what your vulnerabilities and what your threats are, because you also have to do the TACCP and the VASIP. And it just continues to build upon itself. And as you work through the training and understand how to manage these programs, you'll finally see at the end of the day, you have a fully functional program or process for food safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Actually, a question just popped up, but kind of on the heels of what you were saying, what do you see as the number one non-conformance when conducting a supplier audit? I see in general, it always seems to come up when I hear, and I know enough to be dangerous, it all seems to relate to the pest control side, or often.
Right. Pest control is often a common finding. Another one, believe it or not, are the people who are doing the work. They just don't want to take off their jewelry. They don't want to wear their hair nets and beard nets, right, and such. So I think personnel issues also show up quite high on the list. When you start working into your risk assessments, there are findings with risk assessment. And one of the new requirements that showed up in these programs in the last 5 years is food safety culture. Nobody really quite gets food safety culture yet, and they're trying to figure out how to embed a food safety culture and then report on it. And we see lots of findings in GFSI audits about food safety culture.
Understand. How long is as an example, is a supplier audit? I know the answer, but I'm gonna let you, from your perspective, answer too.
It depends on how in depth you want to go, but typically when we are doing non-GFSI supplier audits, it's about a day, maybe a day and a half, because we want to make sure we have time to review the documents and then spend 50% or more of our time on the floor interviewing people, watching the process, observing the facility, looking, and making sure that they say what they do and they do what they say.
Right. And I think that's the key, right? That's just obviously the big difference between doing a desktop audit and a physical observation of, do what you say what you're doing scenario. And oftentimes there is that imbalance in particular. So yeah, quite often, whether it's domestic or international, typically a day. But yeah, if they, what we've seen, what I've seen too, is if they want to have the additional FSMA addendum to it, and not just obviously a regular supplier food safety audit, then it's pushing a day and a half, depending on how large that facility is. Some clients say, well, we're getting a lot of a scrap and poor quality product shipped, so we want you guys to go in and actually be like an FDA audit and roll up your sleeves and dig in there. So that may require a little bit more time. It all depends on the specs, the desire of what the ultimate client wants to achieve, the expectation.
And when we do these audits, it's not just in the room reading procedures and inside the facility. We walk outside, we walk the perimeter, we make sure that the outside looks good as it should. And then we also review shipping and distribution practices, making sure that products being put on clean and inspected trailers and there's no risk of contamination from how it's being shipped and how it's being stored.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think this might be the same person answered that provided the earlier question. Can you use our template? So I'm guessing they have a specific audit template. Can you use our template to conduct a supplier audit on our behalf?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't know what you've seen, Jennifer. It's probably, I don't know if it's 50-50. It's probably more like 60-40, 60. They don't have a template, and about 40%, yes, they asked us to do it on their behalf. But what do you see out there?
It's about the same. And when we're in that scenario, when a client asks us to use their format and their template, we always want to review it with them and make sure we understand the information they're seeking, and then provide any guidance that we see that might make their audit a little more robust. Have you considered, digging into these areas as well? And oftentimes we can beef up the template. And there's been an occasion or two when they say, nope, we just want our audit done, do it.
Right. Yeah. I find that too, right? Clients. And I've dealt with companies that are very large, certainly in the $1 billion annual revenue category, to very small entities and they're all kind of the same. Some of them say, no, this is exactly what we have execute on our behalf, that audit. We have it, we have the audits, we have the suppliers in India or in China or wherever that may be, South America or Latin America and that. And some of them say, yes, I'd like to have that added, just, verification, right? Cross those T's, dot those I's, considering you guys do audits all the time. So we do get both of those that ask. So definitely the case. Do you see many recalls in the pet food industry versus non-pet food?
I'll say the answer is no. When I look at recalls in the human food market, the largest percentage of recalls that we see these days are undeclared allergens. And we're just not seeing that many in the pet food world, but they do exist. And that's why having recall procedures and practicing and doing mock recalls is so important in your organization, because there's so few and far between. I always use the phrase that when one were to happen, everyone's hair catches on fire and you're running around like mice in the middle of the room. So that's why it's good to have a procedure and a process that you follow into practice.
Right. I think this question is similar to one that was mentioned before, but let's just make sure that we address it. Do you see GFSI certification a must for the pet food industry and for pet food manufacturers?
I do not see it as a must, but as we look at the requirements of 21 CFR 117, they're very much along the lines. And if you ever thought that you might want to sell your ingredient, if you're an ingredient manufacturer, into the food space, it would be something you would have to do.
Yeah. I would have to echo that because, and I've been with SGS for, 13 years, so very heavily focused in the food industry in that time. I don't know if I recall the last time I came across a company that was saying they need to be certified to, just a HACCP certification because they are a pet food manufacturer. It's always been, no, I need to be SQF or, FSSE or BRC, depending upon their own internal drive, but overall needing to be GFSI versus a non-GFSI. Yeah, I've seen that definitely being
And I think it's telling, Warren, that each one of those standards that you mentioned, they have codes specific to pet food.
Yeah, exactly.
Or categories.
Categories, right. Is there a higher risk for fresh pet food that's seen in stores, which is very true, right? I see advertisements too of for companies that you can go down the pet food aisle and they actually have a refrigeration unit there for fresh pet food. So I guess that's where this question's coming from. You see an added risk for fresh pet food manufacturers. What do you say?
I would say that if the cold chain is working as it's supposed to, and if the manufacturer of the food is following all the right processes and procedures, then the risk should be minimal. But with that being said, ground beef has a much more surface area than a filet. So will I eat a filet rare? Oh yeah. Will I eat my hamburger rare? No way, because there's just a lot more opportunity with the surface area for bacteria to get in and do its business. So I think that if you can ensure that the cold chain is maintained and everything is done correctly, then it shouldn't be any different, but just it's inherent with the manufacturing of the product that it's going to be higher risk than kibble or canned food that's gone through a process authority and had a retort process and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, very true. Well, on that note, I think we've captured many. There were some duplications in there of questions as I'm going through, but if we have not answered your question, apologies up front. Certainly feel free to contact myself, contact Jennifer, just contact us overall. We're certainly here to help. It's been a fantastic webinar, very insightful. Hopefully for everybody that's attended, you're able to come away with some grains of information, some nuggets to take back to your respective offices and add to be a much more robust and added food safety management system at your company. Certainly feel free to contact us for any questions or clarifications. That's what we're here for, to help. Again, there will be a recorded version of this available shortly. So if you missed anything, certainly don't hesitate to tap on that respective link, and I'll turn it over to Summer.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.